Hello, everybody. It's that time of year again. Get those morels, right? Um, if you want to preserve morels, drying works good. Here's some drying on my Kardash. Dehydrator certainly is going to work as well. But drying the morels is a great way to preserve them for the season. You can put them in the fridge for a limited time, but there's not going to be forever, right? And then the last way to keep these morels is to fry them in a little butter, saute them, then freeze them after you cook them. Actually, that method works with a lot of mushrooms. One thing we got to talk about is the false morels in this season. I want everybody to be a safe forager and not to get sick or have any other problems. And so here is a questionable morel. It has a different kind of cap. Can you eat it? Can't you eat it? There's some arguments either side of that. You know what I say? If you're a beginner, just stay out of this. Right? You just want the true morel, and a true morel is hollow all the way on the inside. So one thing you're going to see about all of these guys, if I cut any of these in half, it's going to be hollow all the way through. There's no stem, none of this stuff going on. Okay, so that is one kind of look-alike I would stay away from. In fact, it's probably so late in the season, you're probably not going to find these anyway. But for next year and the years to come. And then there's these, the Gyromita group. They have rocket fuel in them. It's toxic, carcinogenic, not food. Okay, these are not food. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Why do I show these? These look so clearly different than the morels. I show them here because if you and your friends all went out hunting one day and you didn't get anything, but you found one of these, that's how it happens. Okay, severe gastrointestinal upset, maybe kidney damage, that kind of stuff. Some people argue about eating these and not. I just say, you know what? That's not worth it. Okay, it's not worth anything. And so if you pick one of these false morel species, no, that's not food. Okay, don't eat stuff that is not food in your morel foraging day. I wish you all the best of luck. And morels can vary in size. Look at these monsters. There's like big pint size. There's a half and a half pint. There's a morel mushroom, right? You can get big to small, all sorts of variations in there. And now let's talk a little bit about that poisoning and all mushroom poisonings. Look at how much blood from your digestive system just goes right to the liver, right? This is normal, right? The liver digests all the things from your meals and distributes them and stores them and makes all the arrangements there. Big biochemical activity center, lots of mitochondria, lots of enzymes, all sorts of things in that liver. Okay, and so if you eat those bad mushrooms, it grows right here. Okay, and so that's the worst case. The worst poisonings, I don't know if these are going to go that far, but worst poisonings, you need a new liver for other types of mushrooms. Speaking of that liver, alcohol gets digested in that liver, right? But, alcoholics have bad liver and those kinds of things. Well, alcohol goes in there, and if you eat the wrong type of mushroom, it can interact with the alcohol in there and cause a whole mess of symptoms. All right, so these Inky Caps here may be listed in your field guide as edible, but they react with alcohol in the liver. So if you had a beer, look here, as much as 5 days after eating them can trigger this event. Furthermore, there are other species that will give you GI distress, so it's not as bad. I mean, you'll be on the can for a while, and looky there. For some people, they have GI distress when they eat morels. Could it be alcohol? Well, some sites suggest it is. This is from United U.S. Mushroom Growers or U.S. Mycological Association. I got the link at the bottom at the end of the slideshow so you can see it then. But that's what's going on. Okay, now we've talked about morels. Let's take a step back here. What the heck is a mushroom? Okay, fortunately, it's not what's in this cartoon. Mushrooms are a kingdom of living things. There's several, right? There's protists, there's bacteria, right? And there's animals and plants. All right, I'm going to show you one of the kingdoms of living things. I just want to illustrate how incredibly different each and every kingdom is. Here is day one for one kingdom. Can you guess? This is the first day of life for one of the kingdoms. You know what I'm saying? Kingdom animal, right? We're all good there. Okay, let's go into another kingdom for day one. Day one of life. All right, you know what kingdom it is. You see the flowers, it's a plant. But look how different day one is. There's one sperm for this egg, and another sperm. I don't even know what that is, right? You know, it's got like three different nucleuses, but the sperm is fusing with them. And plants do it a little bit differently on day one. There's a double fertilization going on with these flowering plants. Okay, what does that do? Well, this turns into the starch, and then this turns into the first cell. So, you know, it's still pretty similar. You got sperm and egg meeting, making the first baby cell, and so on. But then, yeah, let's say you got some field corn pollinating your sweet corn. Well, if the field corn sends a nucleus up here, your sweet corn isn't going to be so sweet anymore, right? So that's why you got to separate those different varieties of corn. All right, so look at that kingdom animal. Look at that kingdom plant. Are you ready for it? You ready? Look at this. It's like unrecognizable. Mushroom Kingdom reproduction day one. What the heck is this? Are those cells with two nucleuses? What? Right, and so that's what we're dealing with the Mushroom Kingdom. It's very different. Okay, and a lot of people think that they might be hurting the mushroom when they pick. Oh, I'm going to pick that mushroom and hurt it. No, 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 no. That's the fruit. Just like an apple tree has an apple, it doesn't hurt the tree when you pick the apples. It doesn't hurt the mushroom when you pick the mushroom because that is fruit. So where is the thing that makes the fruit on the apple? Well, where's the tree that makes this fruit for mushrooms? You know what I'm saying? It's down here. It's called mycelium. Okay, so this is the tree that's the fruit. And yeah, if you pull this mushroom out of the ground with some of this, then yeah, you kind of hurt the tree there. So you do want to like cut it at the base or twist it, pop it off, that kind of stuff. We do know mushrooms in other places, right? We're familiar with mushrooms. They're corn rust, soybean. After hail damage in your cornfields, they're gonna pay for fungicide. And speaking of fungus in cornfields, there's some delicious corn smut. It kind of tastes like cornmeal. This is an edible fungus, and it's really easy to propagate. Just grab one of these and throw it in another cob of corn that's growing on your field. You can have a bunch of these. It's super easy. We're also familiar with diseases of fungus, right? We got athlete's foot and staph and ringworm and all those kinds of things. Can I treat that with antibiotics? Dude, that's not this kingdom. Antibiotics is down here. It's a whole nother kingdom. So I'm just saying, kingdom bacteria is not kingdom fungi. You cannot do the same things, right? So we got to use antifungal ointments on these things. So here we go. Mushrooms make the spores, and they grow, and they form mycelia or mycelium. Okay, but it's not that. Remember that double nucleus thing? All right, so spores grow this. Hey, cell division, not a problem. But whoa, what? Wait, what? Yeah, they're just growing around with double nucleus cells, and that's the mycelium. This is the section of the body of that mushroom. All this here is after those two spores grow and meet. There is the mushroom body. That's the tree of the mushroom, and that is the fruit of the mushroom. So that's what's going on. Do they ever fuse the nucleuses? Yeah, the very last step. They fuse, do meiosis, and you got four different genetic swaps of the chromosomes and all that nonsense. There you go. There you got the spores. They go off, they grow. But to turn into the mycelium, they generally do this. And I'm not saying that every mushroom on Earth is like this, but I'm saying a fair large portion are doing this kind of thing. Okay, so the spores grow hyphae, hyphae meet, And then you got the mycelium. That, right, this white stuff. It's the mycelium body of mushrooms. All right, should I eat it? What's going on? We've seen bread. We've seen the little mold on there. All right. Can I just cut the mold off? No, you just cut the fruiting body off. Did you cut the mycelium off? Did you even look for the mycelium? Well, probably not, because you just learned what it is. See that white? Who's gonna see that in the white bread? You can't see that. All right, so it's better just to toss it out, because this could be grown in every slice in there, and it just didn't get enough to make a fruit yet. Okay. In my class, we had a bunch of mushroom kids. We're going to kind of go over the craziness of this process. This upper process, this is usually taken care of by the place that you buy mushrooms from, and I'll have some links later on in the slide about where to get some stuff. But here we go. All right, we got to get those mycelium to grow in something, and generally to start it off, you got some agar, which every fungus likes to grow into. And you got some grain. You can even use birdseed in here and get it to go. The problem at this point, at the earliest point, is every fungus likes to grow here. So you got to be real careful because those spores from every fungus are everywhere. Okay, so we want to get it growing so we can reproduce it. But this is how they do it in the production scale for the stuff you buy. Uh, in addition, when they're making these little kits, when they're grabbing some of these spore prints and putting it on sterile dishes, they're doing it in a spore-free zone, right? And so a lot of people in the labs, well, all the labs that make mushroom stuff, they got big nasty filters, and they're taking. Look at these. It's like dust. That's a baby mushroom. It's like the tiniest seed ever. Right? And so, yeah, smelling mushrooms, I don't know. You want to put a bunch of those in a dark, wet place? Yeah, I don't know so much. And also, when you're making all your trays, here you got the redneck Tupperware bin, but I'm thinking this whole thing is a giant monster filter. I guess there's a fan apparatus somewhere in there. Oh, no, there's the fan. I think that's the fan. This is the filter. We want to get all these out of there. This is blowing air out. Then you can open things, actually spray everything down, decontaminate everything, then open them, and then do the things, and then put the lid on, and then you can take it out of here. That's what's going on with those people who grow mushrooms. So, what are they using to start their mushrooms? They're using spores. They're doing isolation of things from contaminated stuff like that, right? Or they slice a mushroom in half and go into the middle and take a little chunk there and get it started. From there, they put it in some grain, and here we go. We got the grain doing the thing it does. But the problem, once again, is every mushroom likes grain, and so this could get moldy. Okay, so what do they do? They take this grain and they sprinkle it into sawdust. They sprinkle it into dowel rods from joining furniture together. As long as they're pure just wood dowel rods, or they take some of this and make little thimbles to like poke in holes. And then they got the big dowel rods you can stick in the garden set, right? All that. But they take this and they just sprinkle a few of them, and then the mushrooms have some nutrients because this is full of them, and then they grow through the different plant media. Speaking of which, I can't say a specific plant media other than sawdust because which mushroom are you growing? There's a lot of different mushrooms you could grow, and everyone has a favorite to grow into for things. So we've got spawn bags from our class, and we took some spawn, and then we made some mushroom logs, and then we also made some bags of spawn culture, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit. So you can take the sawdust spawn and put it in this plunger tube and stick it into logs. That works great. Typically, this can dry off a little bit more, so a waxy coat is highly recommended so it doesn't dry out and mushroom just dies in there. All right, so after you fill these holes, I'm going to put a little wax on it and then just wait. Wait for it to turn all white, like this bag right here, and then that mushroom has ate everything it can. And if you give it oxygen and moisture, it'll bloom. What happens if I put like this grain in there that's not eaten? Well, then it's going to stop fruiting and eat first. They like to eat first, and then they like to fruit second. So that's what's going on in there. These dowel rod plugs, you can just pound them in, and you don't need wax because it's like a cork. They're going to hold the moisture in there. Although wax could help on the very ends because it's certainly going to dry out. So. What else can you grow those mycelium on? Cardboard boxes. See those little grains? Yep. And where did I get those grains? They were with my little dowel rod plugs. Just rolled up I didn't put it in a log either. I just rolled it up in a plastic or in a cardboard wet cardboard box and threw it in a plastic bag. I left it open so oxygen could get in and out, and that was it. You can use yesterday's newspaper with soy ink. That's organic. That's fine. The mushrooms will break all that down. There's no heavy metals or other weird stuff in there that you get from a mushroom. So mix that and a little guinea pig diet for nutrients. Like those grains provide a little bit of nutrients. That's good. Hardwood fuel pellets work as well, but make sure that they're like good quality ones. You don't want weird stuff spilled on the pallets that made them. And then certainly there's coffee from Starbucks. If you roll up and say, hey, you got a bunch of used coffee grounds, they'll hook you up and they'll give you a big bag free of used coffee grounds. And then you can put some of these plugs or some of those grains in there and start yourself a big mushroom combo. It looks like this one they did layers of cardboard and then the coffee grounds alternating. I like that. Coffee grounds are a little bit dense, right? So it's helpful to put something fluffy in between them, kind of there. So I like that idea. All right, what did we grow and what do I suggest for beginners to grow? I suggest oysters. Oysters grow on everything with cellulose plant fibers in them. Here's blue jeans, here's toilet paper, here's straw, right? And basically, you let them colonize that till it's completely white. You poke some holes for air and mist them, and you're good. And plus, you got different colors. These yellow ones bloom out like a bouquet. Red oysters are amazingly colored to pink and big elephant ears. They can get big or small, depends on your fruiting conditions. And then there's a whole mess of these oysters, and they grow so fast and they compete so well with that moldy stuff. It's fantastic because you can make a lot of mistakes. They're very forgiving here. Shiitakes. Shiitakes are fairly easy to grow, but they do like oak. Oak logs are the way to go with shiitake. You drill it, you put the plug or the sawdust in, and then you put it in a shady zone. You want to put it in the shade, and the reason is it's going to stay moist. So you get in a hot sun in the middle of that no tree lawn. Put a tree in your lawn. Come on. But you put it in the hot sun, it's going to dry the whole thing out. It's gone. All right, some other mold, some other fungus that can handle it that's going to grow in there, and you're going to lose. All right, so you want to get these into the shade, stay in the shade. Usually, you don't have to water them in Illinois. It depends on your state, but it's pretty good. Now, what's this? Are they watering them? No, they're actually encouraging them to fruit. These are like a rainy season mushroom. So you take that log and submerge it 24 hours, then you stack them up, and then they'll fruit and then give them a break after you harvest all the mushrooms, and then you can do it again in a month or so. Hurricane mushrooms. These are I think, out of the plugs and out of the easier ones to grow, these are the best. They taste like lobster. They're amazing. But also for foraging in late fall, you can find some of these, but you got to be careful for the lookalikes. There's like coral fungus lookalikes, but for the most part, these are pretty unique. They got long tooths on all of their structures, and it's pretty good. These ones like maple, and I would suggest along with maple, similar setup. Well, you wouldn't have to like prop them so far up. You just leave them on the ground. You see, these ones are just off falling down trees on the ground, and these are delicious. Here is an example of me growing oysters. I had some of that rolled up cardboard. It turned all white, and then I got some willow wood, chopped it in half, and threw it in the middle. Put it in this box in the shade. The box decomposed, but the mushrooms grew after a year or so, and they're continuously flushing every so many months. I get more of those oysters. Spawn bags are nice too if you're going to do indoor. Straw is used in a lot of them. I would suggest you run over the straw once with a lawnmower because it's a little too thick. You get a little bit of finer areas. So run it over a lawnmower, and then I'm going to talk about sterilization in a minute. We'll run over a lawnmower, get wet straw in there, put your sawdust spawn, or if you got some grain spawn, you don't need a lot. Just sprinkle them grains in. Put a big clump of grains, and you get mold. But at least with a lot of the mushroom, because everything likes it. But with the sawdust, you're pretty safe, and then you can get all those inoculated. Here's a log totem, similar to the other. I split mine in half, but you can make a log totem this way, and it works fine. They got the bag in here. They're probably going to cut a couple holes in the bag for it to breathe, and then there you go. You got a mushroom growing in there. Here's my cutting board. I decided to put mushrooms in my cutting board because they eat bacteria. And so I boiled my board in hot water, and I put the sawdust spawn all over it, put it in a Ziploc bag, let it sit a couple months, and there they go. They went into my cutting board, and now my cutting board has mushroom mycelia throughout it. And after I cut my food and rinse things off, uh, it doesn't always turn white, but sometimes if it gets really wet, it will, and then I just scrape it off. The mycelia eat bacteria. They're antibacterial. That's how we get antibiotics from mushrooms. Right? And so that's kind of nice. Got my own little ecosystem here, and my cutting board works just fine. All right, how do we get that straw sterilized? Well, there's a couple ways, and depending on what media you're using, you can do any one of these. Hot water immersion, you got pasteurization temperature for 2 hours. So fill that thing up, get your burner going. This could be a pot too. You don't got to use 55-gallon drums, right? But you get it in there, and this dude needs to run that over once in a while more. It looks like it's a little bit thick. But anyway, you get it all done. 2 hours pasteurized. Then you spread it on a clean tarp. You spray down the tarp with alcohol if you want, and then inoculate, and then you bag it. You bag it, and then there you go. Once it turns all the way white, make sure that you're misting and giving enough oxygen, and off you go. You got some fruit. Actually, you don't need to cut the holes for the fruit for a little while. You just need enough for breathing. See these bags here? They put like little cloth filters so air can get in and out, so the mushrooms can still breathe a little bit. All right, lye. You can use good lye. It has to have calcium hydroxide as major ingredients. So double check your labels. All right, so we want calcium hydroxide lime, and hydrated lime is what it's called. You put it in your container. There's recipes, 4 cups per 55 gallons. Right, this has 6-hour wait. You drain it, and then I would give it a little rinse, and then spread it on your clean tarp, inoculate. Steam. You can steam them instead of boiling them in hot pasteurization, but you're going to be suggested time wait is 12 hours steaming. And if I would not do this, but if you are brave enough to put a little pressure gauge on there, only 3 to 6 pounds. This is, maybe if you buy the actual can that's supposed to do this, I wouldn't be doing that on a 55-gallon drum because it could be scary eating a big drum full of that stuff. But yeah, 3 to 6 hours you can pasteurize. Okay, here's the easiest and reported to be one of the more better sterilizers is peroxide. Okay, so this is a 10-to-1 dilution. That means you get one of these and 9 of the same size water. One to 9 makes 10-to-1 dilution of this stuff. Let it soak 12 hours and drain. So you can sanitize anything with this peroxide and it works good. And also the byproduct is oxygen when peroxide decomposes, and mushrooms need oxygen to grow healthy. So what do they need to make the fruit? It needs to be humid. Mist them. Mist them with a sprayer a couple times a day. They need oxygen. So don't cover them up and put them in the bottom. All that CO2 is sit to the bottom. Right? We want ventilation at the bottom so CO2 can come out. They need some sunlight. They don't put them all the way in the dark. Not all mushrooms like all dark. A lot of them like a little bit of light. And it all goes back to like where the heck do we, under the trees in the canopy zone. That's where their natural habitat is. So put the mushrooms where they belong in indirect area. And then depends on your species. How hot is it? I don't know. What season do they fruit? Look it up. All the mushrooms are different there, but there is an ideal temperature for most of those mushrooms. Here we got some people doing it. They use humidifiers, they use modified greenhouses, or they use Tupperware bins. All right, here's some dude who went nuts. He's like, yeah, mushrooms in my basement, right? And if you look at those air filter, or maybe they're heating, cooling elements, I'm not sure. All right, here's the fancy one from the catalog, but you don't need anything too fancy. Here's some three chopsticks in a bag of spawn that's ready to go. Right, they made some slices in there, then they lift it up and mist it several times a day, and it grows. This one is perlite, so it's like a white rock you can buy at the hardware store. They get it soaking wet, and they got a little tray for their mushrooms to sit on. They got holes drilled here in the bottom and a couple for air ventilation. And then there you go. You don't have some way to stack your hay in a fancy bag and you're growing these oysters. Get it in the shade. Use an old laundry basket. So it's pretty easy to fruit mushrooms. You just need to have these in mind. You want humidity, air, sunlight, temperature. All right. Where do you find morels? Well, here's the places to find them. They like dead trees. I found them in apple orchards. I found them around the dead elms. We look for that peeling bark. You need a warm spell. You need a overnight temperature to be above 45 degrees to grow them. There's several kinds of morels. There's blacks, grays, and yellows are the main kinds. There might be a couple other subspecies. Riverbanks, wetlands, very good. I found a bunch on CRP Prairie this last week. It was amazing. They're just growing in the middle of the prairie. It's ridiculous. And I would have never expected. All right. Other mushrooms. One thing to look about is gills. Does the mushroom you're trying to get have gills? I would say in all beginners, you should stay away from gilled mushrooms. And so I'm going to go over two more that are very common. We've already gone over that white Baird's tooth, the Hercium. I strongly recommend getting those. And then here's another one, chicken of the woods. Look down here. There's no gills. There's pores only, and these taste exactly like chicken. They're amazing. You got to get them when they're young. If they sit on this log too long, they're going to turn all woody nasty. But these are delicious. What's it look like? Jack o' lanterns. Look, they're going. Who would have thought two orange mushrooms the same? Yeah, I mean they're big too, but look at those gills. Right, that is the way to tell them apart. The fall hen of the woods. Pores, and they're huge and they're delicious. All right, here's a fall foraging harvest. I got some oysters, I got the bear's head, I've got the maitake, and then I got the sulfur shell for our chicken of the woods. All those I found same time of year, and they're amazing. Okay, how? Where do I start? For starting foraging, Mushroom Without Fear is a brilliant starter book that go over the least poisonous mushrooms. And I'm telling you, mushrooms can be super poisonous, and you'll find out in a week, not just like in a half hour or something, the bad ones. You want to start slow. You want to stay away from gill mushrooms. This book is it. For ID, I know it looks weird with a guy playing a trombone and stuff, but David Aurora's ID guide is small pocket guide, is colorful, it's full of pictures. It's a great ID. And for growing mushrooms, I went to the organic farming conference, the Moses conference, and this guy Tread Cotter gave a presentation there. I was blown away. His book is really good on mushroom farming and microremediation. His website's mushroommountain.com. Those guys are good people. And a more recent read is Entangled Life that just came out, I think, a year ago. That's a pretty fascinating read. It's not how to like forage and grow mushrooms, but it's one of those books that goes all the scientific studies and things. And of course, I cannot go on without a mention to this guy, Paul Stamets. This guy's been around a long time. He's the OG mushroom guy. He wrote Mycelium Running, and then he also came out with this fantastic fungi, both good, interesting books about it. He's got some good, solid cultivation books. This growing gourmet and medicinal mushrooms, I see it referenced all the time. I'm going to order his fun time activity book for kids next. I'm going to check that out. But his site is fungi.com. Pretty easy to remember. He's got all the supplies and he's got all these supplements and other things if you want to get into those things on mushrooms. All right, so that's all I got. So hope you enjoyed it.